Good morning, afternoon, evening or night, whenever you're watching this, welcome. It's a hazy, misty sort of a day, and I'm planning on exploring two ruined old farmhouses that sit on the edge of a wiley, windy moor. Fog might have more dramatic appeal for such an expedition, but after a fairly long period of bleak, wintry weather, I'm just happy there's light enough to film by, and the wind is relatively low and quiet. So it's a good day for exploring and seeing what can be found. The rocks over there, I presume, were moved off a field when it was in an earlier incarnation, and this lumpy, clam-shaped depression, I would guess, is the remains of several spots where the stream has bubbled up and broken through the surface. Although I don't know for sure, and happy to be educated if anyone knows better. That is the first farmhouse I intend to visit, and the other one is up there in a straight line through the gateway. I'm not at all sure yet when either of them were abandoned. There might be clues to be found, but I would imagine it was one of three things: economics, making it unviable for these small-scale farms to survive, or children of farmers not wishing to follow parents into farming, or, and this is quite likely for at least some of the empty farms on these hills, people went off to war and did not return. There is a main road further up the hill that connects two towns, and the traffic there goes fast and noisy, not quite drowning out the birdsong yet. Curlews, a mostly coastal bird that comes inland here to nest. The sheep are in no way bothered by my presence, just curious to see if I'm bringing them anything good to supplement the grass. Makes a change from the skittish wildlife here, none of which I've managed to befriend since I moved into these hills. I used to have the trust of a few birds which were comfortable enough with me to eat from my hand. I miss it. On the road at the bottom of this gully there is an old Wesleyan schoolhouse built in 1865. There are older Methodist buildings in the area, and John Wesley preached in a few local places. It's quite large for a countryside schoolhouse, so it certainly suggests a human population at least double what it is at the moment, so it's fairly safe to assume that most of the ruined farms were not abandoned by that point. This is corroborated, although not confirmed, by old maps, which show them as dwellings up to at least the start of the 20th century. I'm not entirely sure if the mapmakers counted ruins as houses or not. Here we are, and there's a convenient gap in the fence, along with a nice patch of mud to squelch through. Looks like there was an extension, largely collapsed, perhaps barns or storerooms. Another extension here, with a huge stone horse trough nearby. The front wall would have been too low for it to be stables, but farming related perhaps. No evidence I can see of it being a kitchen. From first appearances, It looks like it's been built over several centuries, with some very different styles of stonework. And the window on this side is missing a lintel, and it looks like there's one about the right size over here. Actually, two of them, monolithic stones, and I'm pretty sure each one weighs half a ton or more. So, they're not window lintels. I'm not sure the name of them, but I'm pretty sure they're from fireplaces, just below the mantelpiece. Anyway, let's go in and explore. Looks like this room used to have a window, walled in now. And the door frame looks like the stone was sawn, a bit too regular to be chisel marks. So probably not the oldest part of the building. Still plenty old though. Those window frames up there looks like there was a weaving room upstairs, predating the Industrial Revolution, probably 16-something to late 1700s. At least two more windows that were filled in, probably because of the extension built on the other side of this wall. The remains of lime plaster, which could expand and contract with varying humidity, and a big crack, which means that this wall will fall. Not soon, not today, but maybe a decade from now in a big storm. Or, of course, someone could fall in love with this place, buy it and rebuild it stone for stone, a mammoth undertaking and expensive, much more than building a house from scratch. Not sure what that little opening's for, with its own lintel and seemingly going only about halfway through the double thickness wall. Any ideas? No idea what this was either. I don't think it's house goods. Perhaps a liner for part of a chimney? And speaking of which, there's one of those lintel stones on a large fireplace with an old, straight-up sort of a chimney, which once upon a time a young boy would have been sent up to clean it out. Let's see if there's any birds' nests or treasure. Nope, not this time. I do wonder if I'm small enough to climb that though. That would be dangerous, but kind of an appealing thing to try one day. Sadly, some plastic, and I didn't bring a bag with me to collect rubbish today, though now I know it's here, I intend to return with one, and perhaps my other camera, for pictures. Circular hole, which might have had a wall sconce for a light. Walled up doorway, which suggests it was once subdivided. Have I missed anything? Cross beams numerous and much smaller than the main beams. No sign of a staircase, so probably a ladder to the first floor, and another one of those low-down lintels over a little nook. Curious. Maybe a ventilation opening for the cavity wall. Now that walled-up doorway is much cruder than the one to the extension, so it might be one of the original exterior doors of a tiny little farmhouse that grew into this large place, which would explain why it has a little window beside it. Let's go and see from the other side. Now this stonework looks finer than the last section exterior, but that doesn't mean it's younger. It might just have been built by a generation that could afford better craftsmanship. There's still part of a door hanging. Would have been a very drafty door, even when it was new. Quite beautiful rust. And the interior stonework is quite rough. I think it might be the oldest section of a house. Now that's a pleasant surprise. An axle and wheels of an old farm thing. I don't know what the thing was, but I'd guess it's around 100 years old, give or take a decade. Maybe part of a horse-drawn plough? It has beauty now, anyway, whatever it once was. And there's another walled-up doorway with a window beside it. This building is very strange. I mean, it seems to have been one house at times, and perhaps 3 houses at others. It was undoubtedly a small cottagey sort of a place to begin with, and grew and grew. Big fireplaces, and that looks like a small one was added upstairs, which suggests that upstairs might have been added, though on this wall there's no former roofline. There's a vague hint that the windows upstairs were a later addition, and on this final wall of the room there is clearly a former roofline, and that's still tall enough that the original building would have had an upstairs room, although it wouldn't have had any windows. Again, there's no sign of any staircase and no upstairs doorway, so ladder again to get up there. I wonder how they got the weaving looms up there, dismantled the ceiling a bit to lift them up, or built them upstairs. Almost forgot to have a look up the chimney. It's not as straight as the other one, but again, no birds' nests, and no obvious treasure. I don't think I can say with any confidence how old the original building is. It would be a guess at best, but I think late 1500s is a reasonable stab at a guess, with additions and alterations all the way up to the early 20th century. Interesting, there's the remains of shutter brackets around this window, not around the others, and much more dark soot staining, which could possibly indicate a fire. Nothing but the ghost of a former porch remains, and in we go. The grandest fireplace yet, and a collapsed wall with the ragged remains of another room beyond. Another weaving room upstairs, and the grandest upstairs fireplace too, so it might have been the master bedroom as well as a workshop for weaving. That over there looks tantalisingly like a cellar. Can't just rush over there though, that's how accidents happen and things get missed. First there's a rather large cast iron box, and there's another slighter but similar one still in the fireplace, so coal hopper or ash collector? I don't know. Suggestions, anyone? There's also a minor coating of soot on the back wall, which I did not see in any of the other fireplaces, which suggests it was lit more recently than them. Could it possibly be that as the fortunes of the farming family waned, they walled off more and more of the former living spaces, ending up in this one alone? And now the cellar. It's going to need some light. Fortunately, I brought something in case there was a dark place to film, so carefully down we go. Well, it's a very small cellar, but not without its charm. A big stone shelf for food. Probably a coal pile at this end. Other little shelves for things. A nice arched roof, a little chute which coal was probably poured down. No rust or anything remaining that I can see of the cover for the chute. I'd hope there was one to keep drafts out. Now behind this diagonally placed slab of stone, which I guess was to corral the coal into a neat pile, there's shotgun shells, moderately old, don't see the blue ones around here much. And there's bones, lots of small mammal bones, at least 2 rabbit skulls, and the cranium of something bigger, I would guess either fox or badger. None of that is surprising. Dark spots like this are often the sort of place where old and infirm animals crawl off to die. Looks like an old bottle top. Applied lip, that's fair old. Nothing much else to be seen in the detritus. A shard of glass up there. And a few bits and pieces down there in the water, which I think is actually a tiny spring and may have provided the house with fresh water. Amazing little ferns growing in the dark. Yep, a stream of some sort. There's a hole cut in this partitioning slab and a drain over there to let the water out. It's an interesting feature, and I suspect this cellar was deliberately cut down to the stream because that would keep it very cool. It's quite an effective form of low-tech refrigeration. That might not be all the interest that could be wrung from this small room, but I can't spot anything else at the moment, so for this video at least, let's move on. Odd, don't you think, that this door was hung on the other side of the door frame than the other one? This looks barn-like. A very shallow barn, but a barn nonetheless. The end of that wall suggests a large swing door. Not much remaining, and I think a lot of the stone from it has gone to other newer buildings. There's the cellar, looking like it was a fairly late addition to the building. It is interesting to me seeing how the different additions were knitted together. I think the middle part is the oldest. Hard to know which bit came next, but this end bit looks like probably one of the newest bits, and oddly, I can't see any cement between the stones at all. In the other sections, yes, and in this, none. It doesn't seem likely that such a hefty building would be built of dry stone walling. Perhaps it was just poor quality mortar used that hasn't lasted. Might warrant a closer look. No gate on this side. Think I'll need both hands to climb over. So this end bit looks to have been 3 rooms. A small, a medium, and a large. There's no walled up doorway leading to the house. One walled up window, and absolutely no mortar that I can see between any of the stones. No wonder it fell down. Still, impressive bit of building though. I doubt I could build a dry stone wall that high and have it still standing by the time I'd finished, let alone make a functional 3 rooms for farm things, animals maybe, or storage. All in all, this farmhouse ruin has charmed me. It's got some mysteries, some ghosts, not ghosts of people per se, but of all the lives and labours that happened here. I could not be the person to rebuild it into a habitable space, but for the next decade or so at least, it can still be greatly appreciated for the beauty of its decay. 2 farm silhouettes still further up the hill, and it's the smaller one that's the ruin. It looks like a portion of the roof remains, over the barn at least, not the house, and it also looks like there was some hefty ironwork deployed to keep the house together. So there's a stone and iron buttress, and at least 2 bolts which would have run all the way through the house, but don't look like they're holding up much now. All this suggests to me clearly what I'm going to find, namely stone slabs that were used as roofing tiles, probably an inch or more thick, a tremendous weight for walls to carry. No sign of weaving room upstairs, which I would guess means this house isn't anywhere near as old. I'd say maybe 1850s-ish, with some remedial engineering dating from the early 20th century. Wow, that is a sorry state. The walls are visibly leaning away from each other and tearing apart the central load-bearing wall. Do I dare traverse this precarious pile? Probably. But first, there's one of those roofing stones. It is a layered stone, a bit like slate, but less able to hold together in thin slabs, so it has to be thick, and thick means very, very heavy. The same size area in slate would weigh a third or less of this. Through the doorway and into the secret walled garden, a landscape of moss and elder taking the space back for nature. Must look glorious in the glow of good morning light, with a million drops of dew sparkling. I'm not clear where the dividing wall was, but I seem to be in the barn section now, which, from the doorways and the layout, I'd guess was definitely built for sheep. Unlike the outer structures of the other house, which seem to have been more general purpose, so perhaps that farm was a vegetable growing farm before it was turned over to sheep grazing. I think it is actually quite safe to go into that section. Sheep farm. Definitely. Most of the still working sheep farms have newer outbuildings too, but at least 2 of them I know have barns laid out just like this. Two farmhouse ruins in a line, and what the mist is hiding is that on more or less the same line, on the other side of a valley, there's another 3 ruins. I'm not sure I can film in one of them, but there might still be a video there. Now I shall walk up over the tussocks and boggy lower edges of the moorland to the road, and then down the road towards home. And roundup time, which in videos where I bring nothing home but memories and footage tends to become more of a thank you section. So thank you all of you for your patience. It's been more than a month since I produced a video. This one is very late, even by my slow standards. This latest lockdown has been mentally quite tough, and the weather has been bleak. I've been struggling to get out filming, and I've been struggling with the simplest of craft videos, partly because my brain really wants to concentrate more on much more complicated projects instead. Now the weather is improving a little, I hope to do some more walks, including some springtime foraging, more exploring, mudlarking again when it's allowable. In other news, I've done a dry run of setting up my forge, making sure that I can light it up safely, so in the next week or so, weather permitting, I intend to film my very first forge melt, which is very exciting and raising my morale tremendously. It's been about a year since I bought the thing, and circumstances have not lined up for me to light it up until about nowish. A big thank you to everyone who's watched, liked, commented on my videos, even while I've been severely lacking any social energy to engage and talk back. A huge thank you for all the kind donations I've received through Ko-fi, and for the things that people have so kindly bought off my YouTube channel related Amazon wishlist. I'm not sure who it was that bought this set of wood files and rasps, but I am very grateful. I like woodworking. I'm not particularly good at it, but I do intend to do some craft videos that involve it, and these will be very useful in that. So thank you, whoever you are. Anita Evans kindly bought this little packet of metal pellets. It doesn't look like much, but tin is an expensive metal, and it's an essential ingredient for making bronze. So thank you so much, Anita. And any suggestions for things that you, or anyone else, would like to see me attempt to sculpt in bronze are very welcome. I'm not sure I can, but all suggestions help guide me to the projects I actually attempt. Barbara Holzmark completely surprised me with this package of things from Canada. It's got sea glass, which I love and will use in crafts. It's got a string of chunky glass beads, some gorgeous red chandelier parts, 2 red light diffractor lenses, the bigger one of which might have been a rear tail light off a motorbike. I'm not sure about the smaller one, but I really like both. A matching pair of porcelain doll arms, in a size that I haven't found even one of over here. Fleur and Kate of Mudlarking with Kitten Caboodlers have been much more proactive at doing interesting things with these, but I still hope to try something someday too. A glass lion, which I love, was probably the handle off a bonbon dish. Some little elephants, which I think are plastic, but they're lovely things nevertheless, and very welcome, and a small bottle that a friend of hers melted into a hangable ornament. And I think I know how it could be done to get results like this, which makes me keen to try it myself someday. Thank you so much, Barbara. This was a wonderful surprise gift. For anyone else who does really want to send me things, I'm not particularly well set up for it, as in, I treasure how well I can hide from the world when my introversion demands it. So I don't give out my home address lightly, and only really to people in distant countries who message me privately, either through Instagram or my Facebook author page, both of which are sadly quite neglected. I have looked at getting a PO box, but one here is £360 for a year. That's about $500 US, not something I can easily afford yet. However, in the meantime, I made a private Amazon wishlist public, and it's full of treats that I am pretty much guaranteed to enjoy. Mostly books, food and drink. It went public just after my last video went live, and I was blown away by the generosity that came my way through it. Carol C. bought me a jar of pesto that I really like, that I haven't been able to get from the shop I used to buy it from, since I don't go into shops anymore. Also some Crimble's chocolate-coated coconut macaroons, and some Candy Kitten sweets. I like the whole range of those. These ones are sour watermelon. Thank you so much, Carol. I'm not sure who sent these, but thank you so much. A box of New England Cookie Company vegan cookies, choc chips, salted caramel, fruit shortbread and orange choc chip. I am not quite Cookie Monster, but one of my favourite videos on YouTube is a mashup of Cookie Monster and Tom Waits, and I myself do at least have a Cookie Monster cookie tin, which these will have quite temporary residence in. Again, I'm not sure who sent me this box of naked bars, which are great little snack bars, and I take a few of them whenever I go out mudlarking. This box contains 2 each of 9 different flavours. Thank you so much, whoever it was who bought it. It was very kind, and it's greatly appreciated. I wish I knew who it was who bought these 3 books. A graphic novel version of Robert Tressel's The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropist, another graphic novel version of Terry Pratchett's Guards, and 3 short Terry Pratchett novels in one book. Truckers, Diggers and Wings, which I love dearly, but haven't read for a very long time. Rereading old favourites is a comforting treat sometimes, so thank you very much to the person or people who bought these. And last but by no means least, a very big thank you to Louise Guerin, who wasn't particularly inspired this time by what remains on my video related wish list, so instead both donated through Ko-fi and then bought this wonderful omnibus collection of Edward Gorey's stories and drawings. I love Edward Gorey's style of things, and have even written a few things myself inspired by his work. I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have and you'd like to, then any way you choose to show appreciation is very much appreciated. The options have already been described quite thoroughly: likes, dislikes, comments, shares, donations through Ko-fi, or purchases from one or more of the two available Amazon wish lists. There is of course no obligation whatsoever for anyone to engage in any of that, but the options are there, and I'm grateful whenever anyone does. I hope that you're all keeping safe and well. Thank you all very much for watching, and for now, goodbye.